Right now, more than 3/4 of the sunlight hitting your windows is not just lighting up the room. It is turning into heat inside your house. The number is 76%, and that is not a guess. The U.S. Department of Energy measured it on a standard double-pane windows, not old single-pane glass. Here's the problem. Most of what the sun throws at your window gets through, lands inside, and it stays there. Your blinds are not solving it, not the way most people think. Interior blinds only reduce solar heat gain by 10 to 15%. That is the Department of Energy's own number. On a good day, they stop 15%. The other 85% still pours into the room. It warms your floors, your furniture, and the air around you. Then your air conditioner spends the whole afternoon trying to remove heat that should never have entered. Now look at the part most people miss. Put a mesh screen on the outside of that same window and it can block 70 to 90% of the heat before it touches the glass. Same window, same afternoon, completely different result. The screen costs about $15 to build. And the reason most homeowners never think to mount one there has almost nothing to do with whether it works. It has everything to do with which side of the glass we pay attention to. Here is what that little mistake is costing you right now. According to the Department of Energy, window-related energy loss makes up 25 to 30% of your total heating and cooling bill. For the average American household, that means about $300 to $500 a year disappearing through glass. Across the country, the waste through windows alone adds up to more than $20 billion every year. That is the part that feels almost backwards. Your windows may cover only about 15% of your wall area, but that small slice of the house can do close to a third of the damage. A tiny part of the surface is creating a huge part of the bill. Now here is the simple test. Stand next to a west-facing window at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in July. Hold your hand about 6 inches from the glass. You do not need a meter. You can feel it. Heat is pushing off the surface and warming the air between you and the window. That is your cooling bill forming in real time. Here is what is happening. That heat first entered as light. Shortwave solar radiation passes straight through glass because glass is nearly transparent to it. Then it hits your floor, your couch, and your walls. Once that light lands, it changes into heat. More specifically, it becomes infrared radiation. So the room does not just feel bright. It starts storing the sun as heat. But here's the problem. Glass is good at letting sunlight in. It is bad at letting that heat escape back out. The light got in. The heat stayed trapped. Your window becomes a one-way door. Everything that enters as sunlight eventually shows up as another line on your electric bill. That is the greenhouse effect, just not the version people usually talk about. This one is not happening in the atmosphere. It is happening in your living room. And on every sunny afternoon, it is happening in homes all over the United States. Now look at the experiment that proves how much this matters. A research team in Trappes, France, tested a south-facing room with no shading at all. The inside temperature climbed to 97 degrees. Then they added an interior screen. The room dropped to 90.7 degrees. That helped, but not enough. Then they moved the screen outside the window. Same room, same glass, same sun, no air conditioning. The temperature dropped to 75 degrees. That is the part most people miss. The inside screen gave them 7 degrees. The outside screen gave them 22 degrees. Here is why the difference is so big. An interior blind is sitting inside the greenhouse. By the time sunlight hits it, the light has already passed through the glass. The blind absorbs part of that energy and reflects part of it back toward the window. But the heat is already inside your room where your AC has to deal with it. Then the blind itself warms up. The narrow pocket of air between the blind and the glass gets hotter and hotter. You have basically made a small oven between fabric and glass. And that trapped heat radiates back into your room all afternoon. The blind is not really stopping the heat. It is just moving it around after it is already too late. An exterior screen works because it sits outside the greenhouse. It catches sunlight before that energy reaches the glass. Part of the sun is absorbed by the mesh. Part of it is reflected away. The remaining heat stays outdoors where moving air can carry it off for free. That changes everything. The glass never gets the same chance to heat up. The air inside never turns into that trapped little oven. You are not asking your air conditioner to fight heat after it has crossed the window. You're stopping it at the surface before it becomes your problem. That is not a small upgrade. It is a different level of performance from the same basic piece of mesh. And in winter, you take the screen off. That takes about 30 seconds. The same clips let you pull it free in October, so low-angle winter sun can come through and warm your house for nothing. A $500 window replacement is permanent. A $15 screen changes with the season. The Department of Energy's own data makes the comparison simple. Standard interior mini blinds, the kind hanging in millions of American homes right now, reduce solar heat gain by about 10 to 15%. An exterior 90% solar screen blocks over 85%. That is about 6 times the heat reduction. From the same basic idea, the only real difference is location. Same window, same sun, same concept. One shade sits on the wrong side of the glass. The other sits where the heat should have been stopped in the first place. Now look at the numbers, because this is where the whole idea starts to make sense. A do-it-yourself, a solar screen frame kit gives you the basic parts: aluminum frame stock, corner pieces, vinyl spline, and mounting clips. That usually runs $10 to $20 per window. Then you buy the solar screen mesh itself. The better material in 80% or 90% density costs about $1 to $2 per square foot. For a standard 3 by 5 foot window, the whole setup comes out to about $15 to $30 all in. So if your house has 10 windows, you're looking at roughly $150 to $300. Now compare that with replacing the windows. Installed replacement windows cost $300 to $800 per window. For the same 10-window house, that becomes $3,000 to $8,000. And here is the part most people do not realize. Even a brand new double-pane low-E window still lets 29% of solar energy through as heat. The new window is better than the old one, but an exterior screen on the old window is better than both because it stops the heat before the glass gets involved. Here is where the research gets hard to ignore. A study covering 50 cities looked at what exterior shading does to cooling costs across the United States. It was funded by the professional awning industry and conducted by Joe Huang of Whitebox Technologies, an expert in building energy simulation. The results pointed in the same direction. Exterior shading reduced cooling energy by 25 to 52%, depending on the city and the direction the windows faced. In Pittsburgh, homes with exterior shading on single or double pane windows cut cooling energy by 46 to 50% in a hot year. In Phoenix, the net savings came to $193 annually. In New England, savings reached up to 61%. And this was not a tiny sample. Across 50 cities, with 480 simulations per city, the pattern kept repeating. Stop the sun before it reaches the glass, and the cooling load drops. Now put that into your own bill. If a home spends $1,500 a year on cooling, a 30 to 50% reduction means $450 to $750 back in your pocket. That is enough for the screens to pay for themselves before the first summer is over. After that, they keep working year after year. No moving parts, no filter to replace, no electricity, just mesh doing its job. Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, tested the same idea in a controlled setting, not in a sales demo. They used 2 identical factory-built homes at the Lab Homes facility in Richland, Washington. Same windows, same HVAC system, same simulated occupancy. The setup was designed to isolate one thing. What happens when the shade moves from inside the window to outside the window? One home used exterior fabric shades. The other used standard interior vinyl blinds. Then they measured HVAC cooling energy across full summer seasons. The exterior shades cut daily cooling energy by about 10% compared with the interior blinds. They also improved occupant comfort in every room where the shades were used. That 10% number may not sound huge at first, but here's the part most people miss. This was not a new air conditioner. It was not a new window. It was not insulation, ductwork, or a smart thermostat. It was the same basic shading idea moved to the outside of the glass where the heat starts before it enters the room. The Department of Energy funded the work. PNNL and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory collaborated on it. It was published in 2020. And the same Lab Homes facility used the same 2-house methodology that appeared in the insulated window coverings test from the curtain insulation video. So the pattern is not random. The Department of Energy keeps showing, with real buildings and real instruments, that the outside of your window matters more than the inside. The home improvement industry still keeps selling the inside. Here is where the rest of the world makes America look a little strange. Exterior window shading is not some experimental trick in Europe. In many places, it is just how buildings are designed to work. In Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, exterior rolling shutters, called Rollladen, are standard on virtually every new home. Not as a luxury upgrade, not as a designer feature, as a baseline part of the house, the same way insulation is treated as normal. They are built into the wall above the window during construction. You operate them from inside, and when they come down, the sun never gets to touch the glass. Italy uses the same idea with Tapparelle. In southern France, exterior shutters are not there just to make the house look old or charming. They are used like a cooling system. People close them by 9 o'clock in the morning to trap the cool night air indoors. Then they open them around 5 o'clock in the evening after the sun drops and the worst heat has passed. That daily rhythm is simple: close before the heat, open after the heat. It has shaped Mediterranean life for centuries. And it proves the point. These countries treat exterior shading as building science. America put the shade inside the glass and called it interior design. Now, this goes beyond lowering your cooling bill. It changes how you think about heat as a risk inside the home. In 2023, 2,325 people died from heat in the United States. Among people over 65, heat-related deaths have risen 68% over the past 2 decades. That number matters because not every household can answer extreme heat with more air conditioning. Some elderly residents live in homes that overheat fast. Some low-income families do not have air conditioning. During a heat event, a power outage can turn any building into a dangerous place. That is why Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory published a do-it-yourself emergency window shading guide. It gives practical ways to block solar heat gain during heat waves using common materials. Their number one recommendation is exterior mounted solutions. For vulnerable people, a $15 exterior screen is not just a weekend home improvement project. It can be a safety intervention because it stops heat before it gets inside. All right, here is what you are actually buying and why this is not a complicated project. The main piece is a solar screen mesh like Pfeiffer Suntex 80 or 90. The 80 version blocks 80% of solar heat while still giving you better visibility to the outside. The 90 version blocks 90%, but it is darker, so the view through the window is more muted. Both types are vinyl-coated fiberglass or polyester, which means they are made to sit outdoors instead of breaking down like ordinary indoor fabric. A 72-inch by 25-foot roll usually runs about $40 to $60 at a hardware store. That one roll is enough material for a lot of windows, which is why the cost stays low. Then you need a basic window screen frame kit that gives you the aluminum frame bars, the plastic corner connectors, and the vinyl spline that locks the mesh in place. Expect about $10 to $20 per window from most hardware stores or online retailers. The build itself is simple and inexpensive, and the order matters. Measure the window opening, cut the aluminum bars with a hacksaw or a miter box. Press the corner pieces into place so the frame holds its shape. Then lay the mesh over the frame and make sure the weave stays straight. After that, use a spline roller, a $5 tool, to press the vinyl spline into the channel while pulling the mesh tight. When the screen is secure, trim the extra material with a utility knife. Once the screen is built, mount it on the outside of the window frame with barrel clips or turn clips. Add a few screws, lock the screen in place, and you're done. For most windows, plan on 20 to 30 minutes each. On first-floor windows, you do not need a ladder or special skills. This is basic measuring, cutting, rolling, and clipping. The clips stay on the frame year-round. The screen goes up in May and comes off in October. That takes about 30 seconds each way. That quick seasonal change is the whole point. You block the brutal summer sun when it is working against you. Then, when the season changes, you remove the screen and let the lower winter sun work for you. Here's the part homeowners should prioritize. If you only have time for 4 windows, start with the west-facing ones. Most people assume south-facing windows are the worst because they get the most total sun over a full day. But west-facing windows get hit at the worst possible time. Low-angle afternoon sunlight arrives during the hottest hours when the air outside is already near its peak. Your roof overhang usually cannot block it because the sun is too low, so you get direct beam sunlight, peak outdoor temperature, and very little natural shade at the same time. That is what turns a room into an oven. The Department of Energy's own data shows awnings reduce solar heat gain by 77% on west-facing windows compared with 65% on south-facing windows. If one room in your house becomes unbearable every afternoon, check which direction those windows face. Odds are they are looking west. And that is exactly the problem an exterior screen solves. The first afternoon after you install them, you will notice the change before you ever see it on a bill. The bill comes later. The room tells you first. Walk into that problem room at 3 o'clock when it is usually uncomfortable, and the air feels different. The heat is quieter. The glass is not pushing warmth into the room. The floor near the window is not hot to the touch. Your air conditioner is not cycling on and off trying to catch up. Nothing dramatic happened. You did not replace the window. You did not install a new HVAC system. You just stopped 80% of the heat at the surface, about 6 inches outside the glass, where the wind can carry it away for free. Now, a few honest trade-offs. Solar screens reduce outward visibility, especially the 90% density version. You can still see outside, but it feels like looking through a fine mesh. The view is slightly darker and a little muted. That is why the 80% density is often the better balance for living rooms and kitchens, where you still want the view. The 90% density makes more sense for bedrooms, west-facing windows, or rooms where heat rejection matters more than clarity. And yes, some homeowners associations may have opinions about exterior mounted screens. Most solar screens are dark mesh in simple, minimal frames. They are usually less visually intrusive than awnings or shutters. But check before you install. Curb appeal concerns are real. They are also one reason so much of America keeps paying to air condition heat that never needed to enter the house. Here is the part that explains why this solution is so easy to miss. The global window coverings market brings in roughly $25 to $29 billion a year. But that market is built almost entirely around products that live inside the glass. Blinds, curtains, shades, shutters, showroom displays, interior designers, home decor catalogs, and retail aisles built around how a room looks. Every product in that chain is treated like interior design. Exterior screens do not get that treatment. They have no showroom moment, no glossy design spread, no big retail end cap telling you to mount this outside before the sun hits the glass. The strange part is that everything already exists. The mesh is on the shelf, usually somewhere around the HVAC aisle. The frame kits are in the screen aisle. The research is sitting on the Department of Energy website. Nobody suppressed it, but nobody is really promoting it either. And that gap between available and promoted is where about $300 of your annual cooling bill can disappear every year, one hot afternoon at a time. That is the hidden cost of putting the shade in the wrong place. Your air conditioner is not really fighting the heat outside. It is fighting the heat your windows already invited inside. Once that heat crosses the glass, you're paying the system to remove it. The cheapest and fastest fix for the worst performing surface in your house is not a new window. It is not better blinds. It is not a smarter thermostat. It is a $15 screen sitting on the wrong side of the glass, moved to the right side, and the principle is bigger than windows. Stop heat at the surface before it enters the living space. Before you go, hit the like button if this helped you see your home a little differently. Subscribe to the channel for more smart, practical ways to cut energy waste, lower your bills, and make your house work better without spending a fortune. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.